So, welcome to the Speaking Podcast. This is episode number 54. And if you want to find all of our episodes, go to speakingpodcast.com. Today, my guest is from Germany. Please welcome Markus Beckmann.
Hey, Roy. Good to be here.
So, what I normally do, Markus, is I ask people, rather than me script it or get information beforehand, I ask, who's Markus?
Well, I am in Germany known as the video presence coach. But that's already a little bit of a history. I coach people to be present in front of a camera and to get their videos out there and be present in the world. But lately I've been switching to offline because I really enjoy speaking in front of people in a real audience. And that's what I'm exploring right now, and it's in the beginning phase. So that's shortly who I am. There's much more to me, but that's enough for now, I think.
Well, brilliant. But to be honest, I think actually being able to do it on video is very relevant at the moment, since we're all being kind of told to stay at home. So there'll be a lot of people that were used to being on stage and now need to kind of get their business online. So, you might give us as much tips and tricks on that side of the fence if you can.
Oh, absolutely. It is a different medium. A lot of things are similar. One thing that comes to mind is you do need like this extra portion of energy. If you talk like casually, like you would with a friend in the room, then your energy is a little bit too low. It's like going down, and the camera is kind of sucking up some energy. So you need to be there a little bit with more energy than you would be in a normal room with people. And that's the same as it is on stage, as I perceive it.
Okay. That's the way I see that is it's like when you're doing your driving test, you're glancing at the mirror, but it was like you have to exaggerate it to make sure the guy next to you is seeing it. So.
Exactly. And often people, especially in front of a camera, when they're alone with the camera, it feels really strange. With a lot of people, you automatically, through the adrenaline and stuff, you get into it. But in front of a camera, sometimes it feels awkward. And of course, you don't have the immediate feedback. And that's a big difference to a real life audience. You do not get an immediate feedback. Even if you talk to many people, you sense what is getting to the people and what not. And with the camera, you don't have that. So you have to rely on a few tricks and things and experience to work your way around it.
No, very good. And I see as well, you were able to modify the background, because I know there's some tricks in the Zoom, which, at times can help. I'm not sure if you can actually put one on there just to show the people, because this podcast is actually going to be on YouTube as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have like a neutral background, and this is something that I put up. So it's not this, like the regular background in my room is not distracting people. So I'm in the presence of the camera. And Zoom is quick enough and strong enough to not need a green screen. I can just click a button here, and I'm out. I just moved to the Caribbean or wherever this was taken, and you can put your own photos there. Zoom offers you a view, and I am really. I mean, I come from video production, where doing an effect like this that well required like a green screen and lighting just for the screen, so this would work. And to see this work in real time with just a white background as well as it does is just amazing. Technology is so far advanced, it's incredible.
Yeah. And I presume like having the right color shirt as well, because if you had white, I'm assuming it would probably pick up on that and you'd be part of the screen.
Yeah, you should always wear something that is in contrast to the background, of course. If you have a darkish background and you're well lit, but you have a dark sweater like Steve Jobs used to have, like this black ones, then you get lost into the background. And that's why I picked the blue shirt. Actually, just change it because these are natural things to me. So I look at the picture, I'm like, I had a white shirt before with the white background, it's not working, and the effect wouldn't work as well either. And one other thing that happened with your shirt, if you see the picture, when you move, it makes funny things here, because you have like a really small, what do you call it in English? When the pattern of the shirt has like a small contrast in it, and video is like overwhelmed by it, and then you get these waves in there. that are moving around. So it should be a plain
Trying to get
color.
the high.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see these stripes coming up. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's a good
use
point.
plain colored stuff, not with these little patterns in it, and use it in contrast with your background. And basically, what it comes down to is be conscious of what you are doing. As soon as you get yourself into this little box, everything in that box matters to the audience. And even if it shouldn't matter, the brain of the audience will always try to make something of it, because we're used to this. If you look at a movie and you think there's like a crazy chaos background, everything there is there for a reason. Everything was brought into that frame consciously, if it's a well done movie.
Yeah.
And if it looks like chaos in the background, then that's not because there was real chaos, because it was propped that way. And you should prop your frame that you give out to the audience with the same consciousness about it. That's like the biggest step. Be conscious about it, and then look at it and say, do I want this? Do I like what this is saying or not? And then you adjust accordingly.
Mm. Yeah, there was actually, we were getting a few tips yesterday because the Toastmaster competition's been online, and one of the guys was telling us that, for example, like if I had my hand here, just to be conscious that my stage now is actually the screen so that you can see what I'm holding.
Exactly. So I'm not doing this right now, but for a competition like this, or when I would go on stage, I would actually set me up further back. And one good thing is to say, like, your belly button should still be in the picture. And then, because when you do gestures, usually you can see your hands. It's not for no reason that it says in the movies, like, show me your hands, because when I can see somebody's hands, the trust level is higher. If my hands are here somewhere, nobody, well, what's he doing down there? What is the rest of from him, is about. You want to know this. So if you can see the hands, this is raising the trust level.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that was mentioned as well, and I'd like your like my speech. I know some people can do their speech just sitting down and talking, but my speech I'm going to be standing and doing a few different things. And I was advised to raise the laptop so that it's not that I'm looking down, that it'll be at eye level, and to basically look at the light in the camera, not to be looking at myself, because then I'm still looking down.
Absolutely. This is one small and major tip as well. When even now with a Zoom call, try to have the camera on eye level, and don't tilt the camera, because you're either going to be looking down at your audience or you're looking up at the audience, and both is not the way you want it to have. So just take your laptop, a couple of books. I even put my because I'll be in the Toastmasters competition as well next week. They postponed it, and I put my old iMac that has a LAN. That's another thing, a LAN cable for a stable connection, and I put that on a couple of tables. So it's when I'm standing, it's on eye level. That's really, really important to connect to your audience. And of course, and that's difficult when you see yourself or you see somebody you talk to like right now. But of course, your audience is the camera. The beautiful part is, if you really look into the camera, you can look everybody who is watching you into his eyes, and you cannot do that with a whole group of people. We learn at Toastmasters, have eye contact and look around and connect with different people, especially if it's a group around 20, so that you really connect to the audience. And with video, you only have to look at one point and you look everybody in the eyes. So there are small advantages. That's what I'm saying. It's a different medium, and we just have to be conscious about it.
Very good, very good. And I know that you just came back from Eric Edmead's course, and you're polishing your skills as well on being a speaker. So tell us kind of what your tips and tricks are for when you're doing speaking.
Well, the most amazing thing for me was to learn how well stories work. And they work both ways. They work really well for the audience, and they work well for the speaker. Before I learned that at the Business Freedom Speaking Academy, I would do talks in front of people about my expertise, and I would have PowerPoints, very detailed, and I had the whole thing completely constructed, and I say this here, and then I say this, and then this, and I had notes on my PowerPoint, and people would see, and I would see by the PowerPoint where I'm at, and then I had additional notes, and it was a lot of work. They were good talks, and I get very good feedback for them, and they transported a lot of great information, and I could put some humor in there. But then I learned how stories work, and that if you just get your points clear that you want to get across and find a story to every point, you have a structure very easily. And within that structure, you can speak freely. And the freer you speak, the more you connect to your audience. And I really, really enjoyed that. To me, that was like taking away fear. I didn't even realize it, but without this big construct of PowerPoint and notes, I was very intimidated by an audience, and to speak freely in front of them, I was too scared, basically. And whenever I tried, nothing really came out. And that actually happened at another event where I spontaneously had to talk in front of everybody, and it was just a disaster. And I had to convince people about joining me and my team, and it didn't work at all. And that's when I realized, well, I want to get there and be able to speak freely. And this little construct of stories and points is like a basic map in your mind that's very easy to remember or have on a little note. I mean, it's no problem to have notes for your talk when you speak, I think. It's just a problem when you read written stuff, because that's like not connecting to the audience. And that's another thing. If you write your speech, you usually tend to write it the way things are written and not how they are talked when you talk freely. So if you do write scripts, also for your video, you really have to learn how to write how one speaks. And that's not easy. So this is actually not only not helpful, this is actually destroying the connection to your audience if you pre-script it too much.
Yeah.
And that same thing happened with the storytelling. Yeah.
When you listen to somebody on stage, like I've seen it in Toastmasters as well, I think like your journey from A to B, but when somebody has it fully scripted and they have all the actions and everything, I don't connect with that, even though sometimes it depends on the judges. A lot of people, they think it's the best speech ever, but for me, when you see somebody telling a story, and you know that if he told the exact same story the next time, there'll be a few little tweaks to it, different, might add a bit, might forget a bit, but the other person will be the exact same the whole time. And I definitely prefer the story option.
Yeah, I'm the same. I always feel like it gets very technical, and some people are very good at the Toastmasters at that technical stuff. They stand, they don't use fill words, and the gestures, and it's almost clinical, and that's the whole thing. It gets sterile, and over that the real connection from heart to heart gets lost.
Exactly.
And on the other spectrum is you just talk your way, but then the structure is lost. So to me, this was like a revelation to have like a little mind map of little stories. And for my competition, I practiced one story because I had to time it really well. If you're doing a talk and you're a little more flexible with timing, because you have a longer time, then you don't even have to practice your stories, because you know your stories. Make it personal stories. Make it always a personal story that actually happened to you, because then you know it. You don't have to learn it. You don't have to remember it, because you lived it, and go back there. That's really important. Don't tell it from a distance. Yeah, and then this happened, and then it rained, and then this. No, I was standing in the rain, and it was pouring so hard that my motorcycle jacket was like drenched within 30 seconds. That's different than saying, yeah, it was a hard rain. And these are little techniques as well, but they are easy, and they really, really connect to the audience. My teacher, Eric, says, you have to decide, do you want to convey information, or do you want to retain information? Meaning, do you want to just put it out, or do you want it to get stuck in the heads of your audience? And if you want that, then you have storytelling is the one thing that for evolution wise is so deeply wired into our brain that it works, that we listen to stories, that it's just amazing how it works.
No, exactly. And the other thing, because I know you mentioned about doing the PowerPoint, and like when you're watching a PowerPoint and the person is basically reading what's on the screen, to me, it's the most boring part ever. But there's a lot of people, if technology fails them, they're out. They cannot do it.
Exactly.
Whereas once you're doing it from a story, you go, all right, I'm going to actually continue. And yeah, I don't have my screen, but I'll get through this.
Yeah. There's the basic saying, never depend on your PowerPoint, and only use it to is it supplement? Yeah, I think to supplement your speech. Don't make it your speech, because then it comes down to what you're saying. I'm reading aloud, you're reading silently, and everybody is reading. And you have to know one other thing. That's also for video. A lot of times people put in like typo in the video. And a lot of it, you can put single words, bullet points. That's great. But you have to know, and you can realize that, again, it's about consciousness. When you read something, you hear 80, 90% of the people hear their voice in their head when they read. And when you hear your voice, you cannot hear the other one's voice. Or you have two voices and you get confused. So you have to realize when you do a video or a PowerPoint in a live speaking, but also in video, as soon as you put text on there, people will read it and they will not listen to you. So you have to time that really well. And if it's just one word, you can basically, you don't read that, you see it and you understand it. But if it's like a sentence, you distract people to the text. That can be great, but you have to know that it happens. And then at that time, you shouldn't be saying something that's really important. So it's always being conscious about what's actually going on with the audience, especially with video, because in the live audience you can sense when people are drifting off to the reading and they're not really listening to you. With video, you have no chance because you don't get the feedback immediately.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but with the competition, what they've decided is only the timer will be that you'll see. So you don't even get to see the audience, how they're reacting, especially if you're putting humor into it, because I believe you like to use humor in your speeches as well. It's a good way of connecting. Have you found that by having the humor, you have a better chance of bonding with the audience?
Yes, absolutely. That was my little story when I went on stage for in that workshop. I actually was standing there. I have to admit, I was standing there leaning against the wall, and there were like two people ahead of me, and my name was like the third up on the list to go on stage and present my little story that I had been practicing for 4 days, and it was the 5th day of that workshop. And I was seriously, I was like gasping, and I was getting shaking knees, and I was like, oh, this is probably going to be the moment when I collapse. Other people had it during practice where they got emotional and blocks came up and things happened to them, and I was like, oh, great, I'm going to collapse right in front of everybody, And the only thing that got me up there was Eric, our coach and teacher there, saying, nothing can really happen. There's no lion or anything. The fear is not really real. It's always going to be a learning experience. And that was the only thing that got me up on stage to realize, okay, I probably will collapse, and it will be a learning experience, and I'll see what I get from it. And then I went up there and I started, and the microphone was really heavy, and I never had one in my hand like this, and it was crazy. But I did the story so many times that I just started doing it. And then came the first lines that should be funny, and the whole room laughed and giggled. And that was a moment where I'm like, wow, this is great. And people even asked me, why was this funny? It's like, I don't know, you laugh, but there must be something about how I said it. And I even got that compliment, but you could probably read a dishwasher manual and it would be funny. You have that skill, and I can't really tell you, this is some sort of talent of mine. But you don't need this. I want to tell people, you don't need this. If you have a little bit of techniques and storytelling stuff, that will work. And then work on your humor. Humor is always risk, but if it works out, it's great. And after half the speech, I realized, wow, this is working. And I got the timing right. And then I got into the finals, and I played with it even more. I got more time, and I expanded the story a little more. That's great about stories. You can do it short or longer. You know, they're not the set timing. And I put a little side thing in here, and and then the laughter died down a little bit. And I said, oh no, this is not working so well. I could watch myself all of a sudden. And then I went to another route, and that was really funny. And they picked it up again, you know, and I could play with the energy of the room. It was the most amazing thing for me. And in the end, I even won the little, you know, audience pricing and got first place. And to me, I was like, wow, you know, I need to do this more. And there's something in me. It's like a calling now. And a lot of fear stood in the way, and now I'm on the way to like go out with this. I don't even know which topic, because I have so many interests and topics that I could talk about. But I find my way, because I know I have something to give to people when I'm on stage, and also how to get there, because I went through that process.
Yeah. And like, because I've done kind of 5-hour, 6-hour workshops with Eric, and I've also been a witness. I've been in the audience when they had the 5-day events, and you know, you see people going from shaking, couldn't even stand on the stage, to, you know, basically being fantastic, that you're like in awe of them. And like, I think that is one of the best ways. If you need to do this fast, is best. Eric, you know, he's like guru. He is incredible at what he's doing. But the Toastmaster is the same, but it's a very slow process. You know, people change between 6 months to a year, so you can definitely, you know, get to that level as well. But it's a lot slower when you're doing it via.
Absolutely. I was a little bit hesitant to connect to the Toastmasters, because they have it very technical, and they have a very technical approach, and the meetings are very structured, which replaces for me the teacher in a way, because there is no coach, but the structure is the coach, and it's everywhere the same. Though the concept is really working out, and I eventually went there anyways, because for me it's a playground to practice. And if people give me feedback, well, your hand should be a little more higher, and this should be a little more, I just say okay. But I also get feedback, oh well, there you got me, and this there it was a little fast, and then I take that feedback that's relevant for me. And what I find, I use it as a practice ground for my speeches, and as well to giving feedback. I love giving feedback. Like I said, I love telling people, and now the old guys, not old in age, but like the veteran Toastmasters that are very clinically down with the techniques. You know, I infected them with the storytelling virus. You know, that's a good virus. It's amazing, and I give them feedback, and they develop quite fast over the weeks. And they said, wow, this was a really personal story now. I really got me there. Like, yeah, you told me to do this. I'm like, yes, this is great. So, you know, people are open for good feedback if you know a little more. And it definitely is a great training ground for like every week to push yourself to go out there and stand in front of people and practice and practice. And even Eric says that, you know, these 5 days are great. And you are a great speaker now. But the people who really get to a point to be a speaker are those who practice. You know, if it's Toastmasters or whatever, just practice. Go out there and do it. You know.
Exactly. And like I use Simple Minds for doing my stories, just kind of on my iPhone, because that's always with me. So if somebody said, hey, can you do a speech? I just flick through it, and within 5 minutes of looking through it, yeah, I have it. What system do you use for actually tracking and, you know, writing down? Do you use pen and paper?
Well, I have like something, also a suggestion from Eric to use a story journal. That's how he calls it. To everything, basically he says everything that happened to you in life that provoked an emotion one way or the other is a story. And it has a point, and you don't even know for whom it might be a great point. So collect these things. And whenever I remember something or something happens to me, oh, this is a story, I put it in Evernote. So I have it on all my devices, and I can tag it a little bit via subjects and stuff like that. So that this is where I have a list of stories. And when I need to do a talk, I usually figure out, okay, who's my audience? What is serving them? What is of value to them? Which points are important for them to know? Because I know them and they don't get. And then I look what stories I have to promote those points, basically. And this is how the speech develops and evolves. Before we talked, I did my meditation and something came up because I have a new speech on Toastmasters, and I'm really, since I come from the media, I'm really passionate about telling people how to properly read a newspaper. So I have a few stories that happened to me, and then all of a sudden, click, 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 the whole talk like came together in my mind, and I just jotted it down, and it's just 5 stories that I'm going to tell and put in an order and maybe check the timing if I can put all those 5 little stories in 7.5 minutes, and that's it. And that's my thing. And maybe I do it once, but there's no more practice. I do it once for timing, to see where the timing is, and then I have to, okay, this has to be shorter. I have to do those really short, and because I want to do all of them, or this I can leave out, and that's it. And that comes from story journaling for me. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned, because we were talking before we started recording about you were doing like the freelancing for pricing.
Yeah, I did. Those were like my first things after learning about storytelling. I have a network here of freelancers in my city, and they do these theme evenings where we meet up, and there's like 15, 20 people. It's not a huge crowd, but it's very interested people. And I did something on pricing, how to find your prices as a freelancer, and how you can do that, and the psychology around it. And that was the first time after my PowerPoint talks that first of all, it was a subject that I was not completely involved in, like in video production. That's like my background for over 20 years. That was just something where I have experiences and I have my thoughts to it. And then I found stories to support it. And I did a 2-hour talk that was basically free. I hardly looked at my story list. And it was very interactive with the people, and it was very successful. I got great feedback for it.
Excellent. So where are you going forward?
Well, I was on the way to go more out into live audiences, and also to do speaking and storytelling workshops. And that was in preparation. And now this little bugger came along and changed everything. And now I come back to my knowledge about video. Actually, I'm developing and working on helping people to use Zoom, not only to communicate like we do right now, but also to teach groups and to have workshops that usually would not work online, everybody would say, because they are very interactive and people are active in it and play together. For instance, my wife is doing for over 10 years acting classes for amateurs. And she's not teaching how to act. She's giving a space where people play. It's actually about playing. In Germany, acting means Schauspiel, and Spiel means spielen, like show play. And it's about the playing part and the playfulness. And there's it's improvised stuff, and people do not even try to be very quick. Like when you go to improv courses, it's always about performance. And there's like no pressure. The inner critic, forget it, you know? We just play here and everything is all right, you know? And to the people coming there every week, some for 10 years, the group that develops there is such a family to them that we decided right now we do this via Zoom, and a lot of people, including my wife, are like skeptical. How can this work? But I believe in connection, and it can happen via online or whatever, because basically our hearts need to connect. And there's a group where people are connected anyways, and they're sitting all at home and they cannot connect, and they were so grateful afterwards, and my wife was so amazed how much was possible. And we had games where people played and they started improvising, and one guy said, yeah, I think you need this cable, and he leads it out of the screen, and the other one picks a cable from his, and it wasn't even, it was improvised. I mean, and he picked up another cable and said, yeah, okay, I plug it in, you know, and it was so amazing. The creativity already worked, you know. You couldn't do that when we do it in live, you know, because we don't have props, you know. So that's where I'm at right now, helping people to convey their workshops and their weekly yoga or whatever, and help them put that on technology-based mediums.
What I've seen actually
work,
it was in the district final last year, was the person that won the evaluation contest and also the international speak contest. They had an acting experience, and I think that will help you to do something like you just mentioned, because then, you know, whether you're exaggerating it or what, but you're able to do that. You're comfortable in your own skin, even if you're, you know, acting the fool. A lot of people can't do that. I can do that. I can laugh and joke at myself. It doesn't bother me. But I know some people, you know, they're very self-conscious. And I think by actually doing some course like that, it would complement your speaking.
Absolutely, absolutely. People report that to us. They say, well, you know, I'm standing in the line in the supermarket, and if something comes up, I just put it out. You know, if it comes up, it's right. And they lose their fears about, oh, can I say this now or not? Because that's what we practice there. And people learn very slowly, it's okay. You know, you can have crazy ideas and put them out there. You can scream at somebody and swear at them, and everybody knows we're playing, you know, and it's fine. But you can practice yourself, you know. It's called play you. So you can play with yourself and experiment. You know, I could react like this in this situation. I wonder how this feels like. And then, you know, and people tell us, you know, it's changing so much, and then and they're really amazed, and that's why they stick with it for years, you know, because it's constant working. Again, I think it's the regular practice, you know. I mean, you can have these moments, but if you don't keep at it and have a reason to keep experimenting and going out there and going over your comfort zone and be loud and be seen, then slowly the fears pull you back in and make you small again. So anything in that direction, do it regularly, you know. Do videos on a regular basis. And the first one will be the worst. There's no way around it, you know. You will get better with every video. But if that's a reason, because the first one will be the worst, you don't start, there won't be any better ones, you know.
Is software that you'd recommend people to use for editing because I'm not technical, like I can edit the podcast, the audio, but the video, you know, that kind of scares me, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it depends a little bit. My connection just broke up a little bit. Okay. It depends a little bit with the editing, of course, on which system you are. Basically, you don't need much. And it depends on what type of video you are doing. Even within YouTube, you can edit. You can take off the front and the back, you know, when you like push the button from the camera, you know, and stuff like that. If you want to take that out and before you get ready, because you should get into like a positive state. Yeah. We tell people, like, sing your video and what you want to say, and then do it on video. You have a great energy, you know, because you're powered up once you sing it out loud, you know. And if you can make that happen, it's a great tool. On the Mac, I use ScreenFlow or Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro is kind of complex. ScreenFlow is very easy to use. There is Camtasia Studio on Windows, but it's kind of expensive. It was around $200. So I'm not sure what there is on board. Usually they have onboard stuff, so for basic stuff you can use that. And there is something called DaVinci Resolve. That is, there is a free version for all platforms. And this comes from a company called Blackmagic, and they used to do, in my days when I was an editor, there was a lot of it was hardware based, and they used to build the hardware. So they really come from a tradition of video technology, and they put out this program. In the pro version, you pay not much, $200 or $300 for a pro program, but you don't need the pro stuff. This is really for a commercial environment. So this is for free. It's kind of a deep learning curve, but it's completely free, and it can do anything. It's very stable, and it runs on all platforms: Linux, Windows, Mac. That would be one tip to look into if you really want to get into editing. And if you're like, I just want to do basic stuff, look at ScreenFlow, Camtasia, or the what's it, Movie Maker on Windows, or iMovie on the Mac. You know, I mean, these basic things you can almost do it on a phone if you don't want to go too crazy on the editing. And nowadays with YouTube and Facebook Live, people don't expect like fine editing. You know, if you do something on your website, maybe you should invest into maybe an editor or learn it yourself. But if it's like a 1, 2, 3 time thing, I would actually go to someone who knows what he's doing, not only technology wise and how to use the software, but also content wise and tension arcs and things like that. Where you need somebody who knows how to do this properly, you know, and not to put a lot of text in the screen. And there's more little stuff like this that you have to watch out for to make it really land with your audience.
I suppose practice makes perfect. Just do it, and learn from your mistakes.
And with editing, you need feedback, and don't ask like your friend or your mother was like, oh, you did this. This is great, you know. I mean, everything and of course, you know, when you have no idea about it and you make a video and you do something and you're like, wow, you know, and I did this, great. But in the end, your target audience needs to connect with it, and try to ask them what they got from the video, you know, what landed with them, what they remembered, how they felt. When you practice editing for a long time, or the way I did it, I edited for TV companies and advertising agencies, and I did stuff like BMW spots and things like that. I learned how to look at a video like new and realize what my belly is saying, you know, and how I feel when I watch it, and where's a little kink where I say, okay, this is where it's stuck a little bit, and this is too long, this is too short. I have a very fine sense for it, and I can always look neutral again, even though I edited it myself. But that's a skill that comes like with an instrument, you know. That comes over years and years. And if you don't want to be an editor, you know, this is hard to do. So get feedback from your target audience. What's really stuck with them afterwards and how they felt, and then work your way in there from that.
Brilliant. Listen, Markus, it's been fantastic. How can people get in contact with you?
Well, there's a website for the video presence coach that's in German, and I leave you an email that you can post. It's mb@business and then film with an e.de. That's German, business filme, but it's the you know, the English word business. That's where they can reach me for sure. At the moment, I don't have other web presences. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Markus Beckmann. Maybe you can link that.
Yeah, I put all the webs in the description below.
Yeah,
so that
perfect. Yeah,
looking.
or just ask you, and I'm happy to help and curious who in the world. I love being out in the world internationally. Wants to connect.
Brilliant. So thanks very much, Markus.
Thank you, Roy. I had a good time.
Right, take care. No, it's excellent.